Hi everyone, this is Anisa, and today I have a really interesting topic that a few people have asked me about. And I think this video is going to help many of you out there. And I have an amazing person with me today, who is an expert on this topic. And we have Michael Horton here from Ocala, Florida, who runs a very successful insurance company helping families with their health and is just a phenomenal human being all round. Michael,
Aw.
please
Yes,
introduce
thank you.
yourself.
Yes, Michael Horton. Hello, Anisa. How are you?
Hi.
Thank you for
I'm
that
good.
amazing introduction. Mm,
Well, you deserve more, but in the interest of time, I just wanted
mhm.
to share this topic because surrender is something that I feel many of us in the spiritual community know about, but it's one of those things that it's like, what is it exactly?
Yeah.
So, what does surrender mean to you?
Yeah. Well, I'm in a men's group and I've learned a lot from that men's group. And I've also listened to different audiobooks on the subject. But a lot of people are like, why would I ever want to surrender? That means giving up, losing, right?
Right.
I've heard it being actually described as you're not losing, you're actually going over to the winning side. That's what happens when you surrender. And when we surrender things to God, we actually give him access to it. So I'm not the only one carrying my issues. It's saying that you trust God so much that replacing your issues under God's dominion, so to speak. And it definitely takes practice. But once we'll get into that later. But it's basically taking on your issues, and instead of you taking on your issues and trying to figure them out yourself, you're literally allowing God access to your problems or to your successes. You can surrender positive things too. That's a misconception that it's only bad things. So yeah.
Wow. So, what if someone struggles with believing or having this access to a higher power? How does that work in the surrender process?
Um, if they struggle with the higher power part?
Yeah. So
Well,
say for example,
go ahead.
what if someone is not really quite sure or they don't have a belief that supports this surrender process? What happens in that
They
scenario?
they can literally believe that someone else believes until they believe themselves. If they see someone that has completely changed everybody knows that person that's completely changed their life on a miraculous basis. Like, wow. Some people don't believe anybody can change. And then there's this guy, Johnny, who 20 years ago was living like this, and all of a sudden change. And now he's lived the way he has the last 20 years. He
Mhm.
believes in something. Believe that he believes. Until you believe, just believe that he believes, because it's a living, breathing miracle right in front of you as an example that there is something out there and he believes in it, and it has completely miraculously changed his life. So that's what I would suggest. Just believe that someone else believes that has really walking the walk until you believe yourself, until that door is just open just a little bit. You only need a little bit
Mhm.
of willingness to believe. And it might slam shut over and over and over, but eventually you'll start seeing in your life proof that it works for you also.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So surrender is like giving access to something higher than yourself. And if you personally do not have that belief, then just keep, looking at someone else who has that surrender process down. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
that
because
sounds
there's undeniable laws of the universe, whether you believe in them or not. If you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to get this as a result. Doesn't
mm,
matter whether you believe it or not. It's just a recipe or a formula, so to speak, that works every single time. If cause and effect. If you do what that guy
mm.
does on a repeated basis, you're going to get the effect. Doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. It just works because it's a universal law.
I love that. I love cause and effect. Like that's
Hmm.
you nailed it. That's exactly it. All right. So is there well, you just kind of talked about the process of it and you defined it. But how did you learn about this? Because that's such an interesting way that you explained it. So where did you get that from?
Yeah. Well, I really started out in this men's group I've been in for, about 11 years, but it was also a couple audiobooks, which I'll get to later. But they describe it as you have a new employer. It's
Mm.
God. God, you're letting God run the show instead of Michael Horton running the show. Because when I run the show, who the hell knows what's going to happen? I mean, I can, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
letting God run the show, we can literally do this with anything. Once again, our relationships, our strengths, our wounds, our problems, and we just,
Mhm.
stop fighting and resisting, because what we resist persists. Like instead of
Mm.
trying to force things every day and trying to get my son to do this because he's doing something wrong, or getting my spouse to do this, you literally surrender the battle. You're aligning yourself with, some people call it law of attraction, God, the universe. There's so many names. Infinite intelligence. I think that was what uh, Think and Grow Rich Napoleon Hill calls it. I like that too. Infinite
That's
intelligence. You can call it whatever you want, but it's real. I mean, it might not be real to you yet, but it is real. And I had a quote from Mother Teresa on that line. Instead of the if what you resist persists, she actually said, yeah. She
yeah.
actually said, I'll never go to an anti-war rally, but if you have a pro-peace rally, I'll be there. And
Oh, yeah, that's powerful.
that's the perfect example of going from a state of mind to an acceptance, loving, positive state of mind. Another example is, I'm not going to be overweight anymore. I'm not going to be overweight anymore. Becomes,
Mm.
I am thin and healthy. I am thin and healthy. So when you turn over all the things you're trying to force in your life to God, surrender to Him, allow Him access to your problems, and believe that He can actually do it better than you. Uh,
Yeah.
it does work, and the hard part is doing it and believing it when you're doing it.
Right, because it sounds like there is a process, right? Um,
Yeah.
that is a process that you explained, and it sounds like being consistent and holding this frequency of belief is really important, right?
Yes.
And so you get that
Yes.
outside result. And
Hmm.
so there's so many good things that you said there, and I know that people are going to take tips that they haven't even heard of before, especially the resistance to surrendering. That's a really powerful one.
Yeah.
So tell me, how hard is it to surrender, in your opinion, in your
At
experience?
fir Yeah, at first, it's like one of the hardest things to even understand. Like you said,
Mm.
you had a lot of people recently asking you, "What exactly is it?" You know, we want to we can slightly surrender things, and then we wanna take back control over and over and over. You've gone Many people that have actually gone through the beginning stages of this and understanding what surrendering is, they'll
Mhm.
have a couple peaceful days where they give it all to God, and then they'll on the third day, on a Wednesday, they'll want to take control of it all back and try to control the situation again. And then you have to go through it again, and you have to surrender again, and until you start seeing it work. And when you actually see the results of it, that's when you completely trust the surrender process. Practice makes perfect. It's like your
Mm.
trust and faith muscles. You're kind of working them out, and when you have lived a week straight of just surrendering all your problems, you're like, oh my gosh. And then you do it for another week, and then you might take it back for 3 days and be like, oh crap. I literally have been worrying and trying to control the situation. Let me give it to God again. And eventually we'll be 98% surrendering everything, and we'll be 98% in peace, love, and harmony. I mean, because that's the direct result of that.
Right.
And nothing given to God is ever wasted.
Oh, that's powerful. So nothing given to
Yeah.
God is ever wasted. And I love how you said that the result of surrendering is this frequency of peace, love, and joy. That's how you know that you're doing it. Because people ask me,
Right.
like, how do I know that I'm doing it right? Like, how do I know? I think that's
Yeah.
such an underrated thing, is that you feel
Mhm.
peaceful. You're not, because I think about the opposite, right? If people are trying to take control, which it's just a human ego thing. Let's face it. We have to face ourselves as human beings.
Control, yes.
Control is an ego thing. And
Yep.
when they're in that state, I feel like the frequency or the feeling they have is just anxiety, panic, fear, right?
Yeah.
That's when
Yeah.
you know that you're not doing it. So,
And a lot of
mm,
that control stuff comes from the way we were raised in the childhood environment we had, where you had to be in control of everything you thought, you know what I mean? And you grow up, we're just grown up kids. And until we break those patterns and learn a new way, there's another saying, let go or be dragged. I mean, you can hold on to crap like in the same men's group that I was talking about. There's a saying, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard this, but everything that I've let go of had claw marks in it. I literally didn't want to let it go. You know what I mean? And then when we finally do, it's like, it's like letting go of the oars and just letting the river take you, not even paddling, just letting the river take you.
I love that. I love that. And when you said the claw marks, that hits home because there's so many
Hmm.
things that we hold on until, it's like the rope's pulling you and you're bleeding and you're like, okay, I have to let go now. I have no choice.
Yes.
How
Yes.
nice would it be if we had the choice and we made the choice
Hmm.
to just simply surrender and not suffer?
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
And one of the main reasons we don't want to let go or surrender is we can't believe what God has for us is better than what
Mhm.
we want for ourselves. Our plans, our way, our timeline, our will. Uh, we can't imagine. You can't even fathom, because I've witnessed this. I've lived this over and over and over. The things
Mm.
that will happen in your life will absolutely blow your mind because they're nothing that you even thought could happen in your life, and you're just like, thank God I didn't do it my way. I mean, and the more experiences you have like that, the more you want to surrender. Next thing you know, you're living, an incredible life.
Oh, I love that. I totally love that because yes, the human mind is fact we have an ego, we have a human mind that has limitations and we have to
Hmm.
accept that first. And I love what you said about one of the biggest blocks to surrendering is this control thing that we have. Everybody has it,
Right.
right? We have
Yep.
to start there. We have to admit that we have this need for control. And the
Right.
second thing you said was that it comes from childhood. So the degree to which we have this control thing is related to our childhood trauma or conditioning, right? Some people are just,
Right.
they need to control more because they might have had unsafe childhoods, unsafer
Hmm.
So I think
Yep.
that's very
And
powerful. Hmm.
absolutely. I was thinking, in addition to the childhood
Hmm.
uh, area, relationships also form that too,
Yeah.
where say you cheated on, I'm not going to go down this alley because we could be talking about that for 2 hours, but say you're cheated
Love
on
them.
a couple times by two dudes or two men or women or whatever. uh, your next relationship, you're going to want to control their cell phone, control where they are. You're never going to trust, and it's never going to work because you got to have trust in a relationship. That's just one example that popped in my head. I mean, anything where you were, I don't know, double crossed or lied to, or your trust was broken repeatedly,
Yeah.
that's going to be an area that you might need some real hardcore work in that area. And that's all it is. Everything's fixable, I guess you say. With God, anything's possible.
Mm, absolutely. And that's why I'm such a huge advocate for a spiritual pathway to healing because I've been down the road of, pure psychology, counseling, traditional methods. The one thing
Hmm.
that's missing is the spiritual pathway. And I
Yes.
like to say, whether it's God, the universe, or whatever
Mm.
people can relate a higher power to, like you said,
Right.
we
Yep.
cannot fathom with our mind what the higher power has for us, right?
Not a clue. Yep.
Not a clue, and it's just designed that way because it's everyone has a journey that they're on, and
That's
that's
right.
why I'm such a huge advocate for including God in your healing. It's in my experience, that's I don't I hate to be extreme, but that's the only way. That's the only way
It's
that we're gonna have this massive
right.
transformation.
And I call them miracles because they're like so mind blowing. I always say all the time, what are the odds of that happening? Like this happened, that happened, and then this happened on the same day. And I know kind of I'm like 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 1 million. Some things that happen. It's just crazy, and it's just God acknowledging and God doing for me what I couldn't even imagine what I wanted to originally just do for myself. You
Mhm.
know.
Oh my goodness. You've just given like there's another video that I want to do, and I want you to be there as well because it's about the miracle frequency and how do we
Hmm.
stay tapped in? Because people struggle with it's like they get this concept of being tapped in to a higher
Yeah.
power, but then
Right.
it's like they come back into life and then they might be around other people
Hmm.
and they disconnect. So
Right.
how do you overcome something like that? Like staying in this beautiful positive vibration of believing in surrender and surrendering to miracles.
I call it, and I got this from somebody else, but it's a great term. She goes to the spiritual gym every day. Just like you go to the regular gym, I go
Yeah.
to the spiritual gym every day. I listen to certain things, I pray. Uh, I don't just listen to music in the car. I do about 50-50. I love music, but about 50% of the time I'm listening to self-help stuff. I call it brainwashing myself because it literally changes the way you think. If you listen to this stuff 2 hours a day for a month, you're going to be a different person, and you're already in your car or walking at the park. Why not just put some earbuds in and listen to positive stuff and stay positive and actually apply what you know works because you've already done it and your friends have all done it. And this, whatever men's group I'm talking about, they've already done it and they've already lived it. I already know what works. They're living, breathing miracles right in front of me. So I ask them, how did you do it? And they tell me how I did it. And just like the formula, I do what they did and I get the results. And it's not really that complicated, but
Mm.
that's it. That's it.
I love it. So I'm hearing like surround yourself with the right people. You
Yes.
don't do it alone, right? Don't do it alone. Have people around you, stay tapped in, have a process for when you feel that you're slipping back into your ego, right? Bring yourself back on track and
Right.
literally brainwash yourself. That's a power
Yeah.
that take control. Well, not take
Yep.
control, but create that environment for your mind, like spiritual
Hmm.
gym, like you said. I love it.
People put negative connotations with the word brainwashing. All it is
Yeah.
changing the way you think, changing the way you think permanently. And you got to do it daily because if you slack
Mhm.
on this for a week, you're gonna, weeds are gonna grow by default in your garden. You've got to constantly
Mm.
daily pull the weeds out or whatever. Whatever analogy you want to use, the light switch, you got to physically get up and flip the light on. It's not going to happen by itself. Darkness happens by
Yeah.
default automatically. We have to flip the light on every day. And that's the same analogy of we got to do this every day.
I love that. I love that. And yeah, brainwashing might have a negative feeling or connotation towards it, but
I
in
love it.
NLP, I love it. I love it.
I'm
In
washing my
NLP,
brain.
exactly. You're washing your brain and you're programming it how you want it. In NLP,
Yep.
we talk about manipulation that has a negative term, but actually, manipulation is a part of life. When we walk outside, when we're watching TV, for example, or YouTube, whatever we do, we're
Right.
constantly being programmed,
Yep.
constantly being programmed. So, what if we can all be conscious and program ourselves the way we want?
Right.
That's
They even call it a program on TV. Let's watch the program. They've been calling it that for decades, you know?
exactly, exactly. So,
Mhm.
I'm with you in that that's not a negative thing. It's just if you're conscious, you have a choice about what you want to brainwash yourself with and
That's
manipulate
right.
yourself into doing. Great.
Yep,
So,
absolutely.
thank you. You've given me so many amazing things. And I think I have to write, actually, I know I have to write a summary for everyone because you've, I'm so excited. I want to follow what you've been doing and have these amazing results as well. So thank you for sharing everything that
No
you've learned.
problem.
You're an
Can I
amazing.
recommend a resource?
Yes, yes.
There's a author, he's only written a couple things. Michael Singer, he wrote The Surrender Experiment, and it's incredible. The guy lives 40 minutes from where I live in Florida. But his story goes back to in this surrender experiment. You can download it on Audible or whatever. I don't get anything out of this. It's just an amazing example of in 1971, he did this experiment with surrendering, and it was absolutely mind blowing what he experienced. And he still lives on the same property from 1971, 4 years before I was born, 3 years before I was born. Um, I'm I'm 49 years old, so that would be 52 years ago. He landed in Central Florida, and he literally what happened to him is mind blowing by simply just surrendering and trusting the universe in anything that popped up in his life for 25 years. It's crazy. I would suggest getting that book and reading it. It'll blow your mind.
Oh, that sounds amazing. So
Yeah.
that sounds like the type of, I want to say challenge, but the type of container that everyone here can do very easily, right? Read
Very,
the book,
very easily.
follow the experiment for
Yep.
how many days?
How many days of what?
You said that it's an experiment that he did. So
Oh, he did it for like years. He did it for like 8 to 10 years, and he went from simply wanting to do yoga in a field in
Mhm.
Florida to becoming a multi millionaire with a publicly traded company using a computer from Radio Shack and a program that he wrote. I mean, it's mind blowing, and there's lots in between there. There's all kinds of things that I want to say magically happen to him. It's God. It's trusting that something else is going to handle it better than you can imagine. And he never imagined he was going to own a freaking computer company. I mean, he was just wanting to do some yoga and teach people yoga in the middle of Florida's swamp, or I mean, a bunch of acreage. It's right by Gainesville, Florida. He lives in Alachua. But anyway, it's an amazing story.
That is incredible. So I think
Yeah.
that when you talk about having someone who has been through that experience and just leaning on their results, that sounds like a perfect scenario for anyone to follow if they're confused about what surrendering means.
Yep.
Um, so
And
I will definitely get the link from that off that from
cool.
you
Cool.
and post that on my
Yeah.
page as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Sounds good. This is great. I love this.
This was amazing. Let's do this
Yeah.
again. And
Sounds good.
thank you again. Thank you for your
Okay, Nisa.
time and your
Thank you.
knowledge and your energy, which I always love. So thanks so much,
You
Michael. And
too.
we will chat soon.
Back back to you. Talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.